All right, let's dive in. Today we're exploring Larken Rose's perspective on societal values and the role of government. We're using a clip from his YouTube video, The Complete and Undeniable Truth.
Right.
And let me tell you, he does not hold back.
No, he doesn't.
We'll unpack his arguments about individual morality, societal hypocrisy, and the dangers of blindly trusting authority. So, ready to get into it?
Absolutely. Let's jump in.
Okay, so to set the stage, Rose really challenges conventional thinking when it comes to how we view society and government.
He does. He suggests that modern society, for all its talk about civility and morality, often acts hypocritically.
Especially in how we relate to the government, right?
Exactly.
So where does Rose really start to shake things up for you?
Well, one of the most striking points he makes is this idea of inverted morality.
Inverted morality, okay. I'm intrigued.
He actually claims that people who are often condemned by society, like a drug dealer or a sex worker, might actually operate with a more consistent ethical framework than the average law-abiding citizen.
Wow. That's a bold statement. How on earth does he justify that?
It boils down to the element of choice. Rose emphasizes the voluntary nature of transactions. Like, let's say, between a drug dealer and a willing buyer, they're both consenting adults making a decision, right?
Right.
He contrasts that with the power of the state, which can use force, through things like taxation or laws, to restrict personal freedoms, even if those actions might not directly harm others.
Okay, so he's drawing a line between voluntary and coercive actions.
Exactly.
It makes me think about all those times I felt pressure to conform to what society expects, even when I didn't agree.
Right.
Is Rose saying that conforming, even to government pressure, can erode our own sense of right and wrong?
That's exactly it. He's suggesting our focus on outward civility might mask a deeper lack of personal responsibility for what our government does. He's basically asking, are we truly free if we don't even question the systems that govern us?
And this ties into another one of his points, right? He's pretty critical of organized religion.
Yes.
He argues that many people put obedience to the state above their own religious values.
Absolutely. And he uses some compelling examples. Like, he contrasts the biblical prohibition against coveting with the state's reliance on taxation and wealth redistribution.
Oh, interesting.
Or Jesus's teachings of nonviolence with the state's willingness to go to war.
So he's saying there's this disconnect where we apply our morals selectively.
Yeah.
We might condemn an action when an individual does it, but turn a blind eye when the government does something similar.
Precisely. And that brings us to one of his most powerful metaphors, the cult of state worship.
Okay, the cult of state worship. I'm listening.
He suggests modern society is trapped in this cult, blindly accepting the authority of politicians, revering them as leaders, even when their actions are morally questionable.
It's like we're replacing one form of faith with another, right?
Right.
We put the state on this pedestal and accept everything it says as law, no questions asked.
Precisely. And that's where his redefinition of crime comes in.
Okay, how does he redefine crime?
Well, he argues that we've shifted from seeing crime as actions that harm others to just seeing it as disobedience to the state.
So it's not about the inherent morality of an action anymore.
No. It's about whether or not it goes against what the state says, regardless of whether it actually hurts anyone.
That's pretty unsettling when you think about it like that. But isn't there a danger in everyone just interpreting laws subjectively? I mean, how do we balance individual freedom with the need for, some kind of social order?
Right, and that's the tension Rose wants us to grapple with. He's not saying we should just throw out all laws and descend into chaos.
Okay.
He's urging us to be more conscious, to be active in shaping our society, rather than just passively accepting whatever the state dictates.
So it's not about rejecting all laws or authority outright,
Right.
but about choosing to align ourselves with a moral code that we actually believe in, even if it means challenging the way things are.
Exactly. And that's what he believes is essential for true freedom. Not the absence of rules, but the ability to live by your own moral code, even when it goes against the grain.
Which, let's be honest, is a lot harder than it sounds. It's so much easier to just go with the flow, to trust that the systems in place are, just and fair.
Oh, absolutely. It's comfortable. It's familiar. But Rose argues that real progress for us as individuals and for society as a whole comes from questioning those comfortable assumptions.
From recognizing that the way things are isn't necessarily the way they should be.
Exactly. And he makes some, let's say, pointed comparisons to drive that point home.
He doesn't shy away from strong language, does he?
Not at all. He compares those who blindly accept the state's authority to sheep, even members of a cult.
It's definitely meant to wake us up, to make us really examine what we believe.
Right. He even goes so far as to say that blindly following the crowd, just accepting what society says without thinking, can actually contribute to injustice and the erosion of our individual liberty.
Wow, that's a powerful statement. Can you give me an example of what he means by that?
Well, think about it. Throughout history, so many atrocities have been committed not by lone wolves, but by ordinary people who were just following orders or
Yes.
conforming to what everyone else believed at the time.
That is a chilling thought.
It is. And Rose is challenging us to look inward and ask ourselves, if I had lived in those times, would I have had the courage to stand up against injustice, even if it meant breaking the law or going against everyone else?
He draws some stark parallels, doesn't he? He talks about people who supported slavery, the persecution of Jews in Nazi Germany, the suppression of dissent in communist China.
Right.
His point being that these horrific events were carried out not just by dictators, but by ordinary people who chose to go along with it,
Exactly.
even when it was clearly wrong.
And that's really the heart of his argument. He's urging us to move beyond simple obedience and develop a more active, engaged sense of morality.
One that's rooted in critical thinking, compassion, and a willingness to question even the most deeply ingrained societal norms.
Precisely.
Okay, so if we're not supposed to just blindly follow the rules, what are we supposed to do? Rudd seems to be advocating for a pretty radical shift in perspective.
He is. He wants us to take personal responsibility for our beliefs and actions, to critically examine the systems we live in, and to have the courage to dissent when those systems clash with our own sense of morality.
But that can feel overwhelming. Where do we even begin?
That's a fair point. It can feel daunting to challenge the status quo, especially when it comes to beliefs that are so ingrained in our society. Rose doesn't offer a simple solution or a step-by-step guide.
Right.
Instead, he challenges us to embark on a journey of self-discovery.
A journey of self-discovery. Okay, what does that look like in practice?
Well, it starts with recognizing that true morality, it goes beyond just following rules.
Okay.
It requires critical thinking, being compassionate, and having the willingness to act according to what you believe is right, even when it's tough.
So someone could break a law and still be acting morally, in Rose's view,
Exactly.
while someone who follows every single law to the letter could actually be complicit in something immoral
Yeah,
if they're blindly supporting a system that hurts others.
that's precisely the challenge Rose is laying out. He says there's a big difference between being a so-called law-abiding citizen and being a truly moral person. And he uses historical examples to illustrate that. He compares modern citizens to people who supported really oppressive regimes throughout history.
He wants us to see those parallels, right?
Right.
To realize that even though we condemn those figures now, we risk repeating their mistakes if we don't, take responsibility for our own actions and question authority.
Absolutely. Think about those who turned a blind eye to slavery. Yeah.
Or the persecution of Jews in Nazi Germany, or the suppression of dissent in, say, communist China.
Right.
Rose argues these terrible things happen not just because of dictators, but because ordinary people chose to follow orders or just conform to what everyone else believed, even when it was clearly wrong.
He uses a pretty stark analogy comparing the average person today to the well-trained sheep or the groveling peasant of the past.
Yeah, he does. He's not afraid to use provocative language.
No, he's not.
He wants to shake us up, make us think. He's basically saying, wake up. Don't just accept everything you're told. Think for yourself. Question everything.
He's definitely not mincing words.
No.
But, I get it. It's easy to fall into that trap of just going along with the crowd, especially when it comes to, societal norms, things we've been taught our whole lives.
It is, and that's exactly what allows injustice to flourish, according to Rose. This blind obedience, the unwillingness to question authority.
Okay.
He sees questioning, that critical thinking, as the antidote to what he calls the cult of state worship. It's realizing we have a choice.
Yeah.
That we don't have to blindly obey laws or societal norms if we believe they're unjust.
But isn't that, kind of dangerous? What happens if everyone gets to decide which laws they want to follow?
Right.
Wouldn't that just lead to chaos?
That's a valid concern, and Rose addresses it directly. He says true freedom isn't about lawlessness or chaos.
Okay.
It's about individual responsibility. It's about aligning ourselves with a moral code we genuinely believe in, even if it means challenging the status quo.
So it's not about rejecting all laws or authority,
No.
but recognizing that true morality means we have to think critically and act according to our conscience, even when it's hard. It's about living by our values, even if they clash with what society or the government tells us to do.
Exactly. And that choice, that willingness to stand up for what we believe in,
Yeah.
even when it's tough, that's what Rose sees as true freedom.
It's a powerful message. And I don't know, it resonates with me, especially these days when we're bombarded with information, different viewpoints all the time. It can be overwhelming. But Rose's work reminds us that we have the power to choose, to think for ourselves, to act according to our values.
That's ultimately what this deep dive is about, right?
Yeah.
Encouraging people to engage in that self-discovery,
Yeah.
to have the courage to question everything, even the most deeply held beliefs.
Absolutely. Because Rose argues, and so eloquently, that true freedom is not about blindly obeying or conforming. It's about having the courage to think for yourself, to question everything, to live according to your own values.
That's challenging, but also, incredibly empowering.
It is.
It reminds us that we have the power to choose, to shape our reality, to make a difference.
And that power starts with the willingness to question, to challenge the status quo, to go on that journey of self-discovery.
Well, thanks for guiding us through this deep dive. It's certainly given me a lot to think about.
Good.
And to everyone listening, we hope this has sparked some critical thinking for you, maybe even inspired you to go on your own journey of self-discovery. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, keep diving deep.
It starts with questions, actually.
Questions? Okay.
Just like we've been doing throughout this whole deep dive.
Right.
He encourages us to be curious.
Yeah.
To look for information from all sorts of different sources.
Yeah.
And to have these thoughtful discussions with people who have different viewpoints than our own.
So it's not just about taking in information.
Yeah.
It's about really engaging with it.
Yes.
Analyzing different perspectives, figuring out our own biases, and then coming to our own conclusions based on, reason and evidence.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about moving beyond just blindly accepting things and cultivating this sense of intellectual independence. Rose argues that this process of critical thinking is crucial for us to grow as people
Yeah.
and for creating a more just and equitable society.
It sounds like this journey of self-discovery is an ongoing thing.
It is.
Not a destination,
Yeah.
but like a constant process of questioning and reevaluating.
Absolutely. And it's not always going to be comfortable.
Right.
Rose acknowledges that challenging those deeply held beliefs can be unsettling, even painful sometimes.
I can imagine.
But he says that discomfort is a necessary part of growth.
Well,
It's in those moments of questioning and uncertainty that we can break free from those beliefs that are holding us back and create a more authentic and meaningful life for ourselves.
So it's about embracing the discomfort, the uncertainty,
Yes.
and trusting that through this process of questioning and thinking critically, we can come to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world.
That's exactly it. That's the core of what Rose is calling us to do.
Yeah.
He believes that true freedom isn't about blindly obeying or conforming. It's about the courage to think for ourselves,
Right?
to question everything, and to live in a way that aligns with our own values.
It's definitely a challenging message, but also incredibly empowering.
It is.
It reminds us that we have the power to choose, to shape our own reality, to make a real difference.
Exactly. And that power starts with being willing to question, to challenge the way things are, to embark on that journey of self-discovery.
Well, thanks for guiding us through this deep dive.
Of course.
It's given me a lot to think about, that's for sure.
Good.
And to everyone listening, we hope this has sparked some of your own critical thinking and maybe even inspired you to start your own journey of self-discovery. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.